Omid. Welcome back to Seco Cyber, everyone. Today, we are excited to have a talented student presenter joining us to shed light on two fundamental tools in any cybersecurity professional's toolbox: IP scanners and port scanners. Amir, please let's go to explore the world of network cybersecurity reconnaissance.
Hello, Mr. Omid, and thank you for joining me. In the previous lessons, I talked about important topics and the protocols of computer networks. For example, I talk about MAC address and IP address and say that a MAC address, which stands for Media Access Control, is a physical address that works at the data link of the OSI model. Also, I said that MAC address are unique 48-bit hardware number of a computer that are embedded into a network interface card during manufacturing. The MAC address is also known as the physical address of a network device. We also understand MAC address allow a device to communicate with the machine just on the local physical network and cannot be routed across the internet. By contrast, IP address cover the whole internet, and routers use them to figure out where to send data, even if needs multiple hubs to reach its destination. As a result, after the MAC address, I talk about IP address and say that in the third layer of the OSI model, a structure called logical addressing or IP address was presented. An IP address is the unique identifying number assigned to every device connected to the internet. An IP address definition is a numeric label assigned to devices that use the internet to communicate. Computers that communicate over the internet or via local networks share information to a specific location using IP address. And I explain deeply all types of IP address in another video if you are interested to know about them, like IP version 4, IP version 6, static IP, dynamic IP, and something else. In the DNS lesson, I checked this topic. Each device connected to the internet has a unique IP address that other machines use to find the device. DNS servers eliminate the need for humans to memorize IP addresses. It translates human readable domain name like google.com to computer friendly IP address like 172.217.10.100. The purpose of DNS is to translate a domain name into the appropriate IP address, just like a phone book, because it's much easier to remember the name than remember the IP. When we search the name of a website like google.com, a message from our computer goes to the DNS server, and the DNS server goes and finds the IP of that website, like 179.201.14.2, and return it to our computer. And then the computer that only understands the numbers connects to the desired website. And I have explained this process step by step in the DNS lesson. After that, I talk about how two computers that want to exchange data and information with each other are connected, which means I talk about transfer protocols called TCP and UDP. We understand that TCP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol, is one of the transfer protocols of the fourth layer of the OSI model. I talk about how TCP is a reliable protocol because it's designed to send packet across the internet and ensure the successful delivery of data and message over networks. In the TCP lesson, we learned that TCP includes mechanisms to solve many of the problems that arise from packet-based messaging, such as lost packets, out-of-order packets, duplicate packets, and corrupted packets. But TCP is not the only transfer protocol of transport layer. There is another protocol we call UDP. I talk about that user datagram protocol or UDP is a communication protocol for time-sensitive applications. It doesn't spend time forming a firm connection with the destination before transferring the data. This allows data to be transferred very quickly, but it can also cause packets to become lost in transit. UDP is commonly used in time-sensitive communications, where occasionally dropping packets is better than waiting. And UDP can be used in applications where speed is critical rather than reliability. In the TCP lesson and UDP lesson, I talk about all the features of TCP and UDP if you want to have more information about. At the last topic, I talk about port numbers. I said TCP and UDP use virtual components named ports to be able to connect two computers that want to exchange data and information with each other. And because most ports are reserved for certain protocols, they specifically determine which program or service on the computer or server is going to be used. For example, all hypertext transfer protocol or HTTP message go to port 80. We learned that while IP address enable message to go to and from specific devices, port numbers allow the targeting of specific services or applications within those devices. But in this lesson, I want to talk about the importance of the topics mentioned above in cybersecurity and talk about two types of tools called IP scanners and port scanners. What is an IP scanner? An IP scanner is a software tool that discovers devices on a network by scanning for active IP addresses and reporting back information about each one. IP scanners work by sending ping requests to a range of IP addresses and then listen which IPs respond positively. This verifies which devices are online and allow the gathering of additional data like MAC address, host names, and sometimes operating system. IP scanners usually use three protocols: ICMP, SNMP, and ARP. ICMP. ICMP or Internet Control Message Protocol is an error reporting system. If we want to determine whether there is a device in the network or not, we send a packet to the IP address of that device. If the packet is answered, it means that the device is in the network. This packet is called an echo request. The process of sending echo packets and receiving responses is called ping. A ping sweep is a basic network scanning technique used to determine which of a range of IP addresses map to live hosts or computers. Whereas a single ping will tell whether one specific host computer exists on the network. A ping sweep consists of ICMP echo requests sent to multiple hosts. To do this, the ping requires an address to send the echo request to, which can be an IP address or a web server domain name. If a given address is live, it will return an ICMP echo reply. SNMP or Symbol Network Management Protocol is one of the most widely used network protocols for managing and monitoring network computers. When you want to collect information about managed device on the IP networks, the SNMP is your friend. And ARP. ARP stands for Address Resolution Protocol and is used to map dynamic internet protocol or IP address to permanent physical machine address, also called Media Access Control or MAC. ARP was designed to let these two systems interoperate by converting 32 bits IP version 4 addresses to 48-bit MAC addresses. Note that both hackers and system administrators use IP scanner. Hackers for unethical activities and system administrators for ethical activities. Hackers first find a vulnerability in the organization's network, and after penetrating the organization's network, they use IP scanners to find live devices. But what is port scanner? As I said before, for each services we use different ports. So finding information about that ports, like whether it's open, closed, or filtered, is very important information for ethical hackers or even black hat hackers. If the port was open, then we could actually penetrate the system and try to access that system. If the port was closed, then we have to think differently way the use of malware, for example. Port scanning is a method of finding the services offered by the host. because each services might be running a specific port. In other words, method of finding the state of the port is called port scan. A port could be open, closed, or filtered. If a port is open, it means that a particular service is running, or in other words, it allows access to the application. For example, if port 80 was open, it means that HTTP service is running. If a port is closed, it means that a particular service isn't running or doesn't allow access to the application. And if a port was filtered, it means that a particular service or port is behind a firewall, and the firewall is blocking the port. And the scanning tool can't tell if the port is open or closed. So filtered port indicates the presence of a firewall. These are only three options when you run a port scan, and there are no other options. Now I want to talk about different types of port scanning, but before that, if we need to understand the different types of port scanning, we need to have a good understanding of TCP handshaking. I talk about it completely in the TCP lesson, but now for review, I just say that when two computers want to establish a connection, before establishing a connection, the sender sends an SYN packet to the destination with sequence number one and say, "Hi, I want to communicate with you. Can you hear me?" Then the receiver computer responds with a SYN ACK packet and says, "Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me too?" And at the last, the sender computer send an ACK packet to ACK packet and say, "Yes, I can hear you. So let's establish a connection and talk with each other." Also, we need to have some information about TCP flags. As I said in the TCP lesson, in the TCP header, 6 bits are next to each other in a special order, and each bit represents a flag. And if its value is 1, the flag is on. And if its value is 0, the flag is off. The flags are in this order: urgent, acknowledge, push, reset, SYN, and finish. Now it's time to talk about method of port scanning. Connect scan. A TCP connection scan establishes a complete connection to the target host by completing a TCP three-way handshake. The attacker sent a packet with the SYN flag on to the server. If the system was on and the port was open, the server would respond with a SYN ACK packet. After that, the attacker will send the acknowledgement. Now, three-way handshake is completed, and once it's complete, the server might send the attacker a data. Once it sends to the attacker a data, the attacker will send a packet with the RST flag on and say, "Okay, forgot it, kill the connection." In this method, if the server sends you the data or even a SYN-ACK message, it means that the port is open. But if the port was closed, when you send SYN packets, you receive reset or RST flag. A connect scan is a kind of risky scan because it's trying to establish a full TCP connection with a particular port. So it makes a considerable noise in system logs. It's very easy to detect and prevent through firewalls or IDS or IPS. These scans are typically very slow because through it, you are going to establish a full TCP connection with every. Next method is SYN-SCAN. SYN-SCAN is a stealth scan because the attacker doesn't complete three-way handshake. If you want to be hidden from the IDS, you actually run a scan called a stealth scan because in a stealth scan, an attacker doesn't complete the TCP connection. In this method, an attacker will send the SYN packet, or as we know, the packet with SYN flag on. The victim has received the SYN packet, and if that particular port was open, the attacker sends a SYN ACK packet, so it means the port is open. After that, the attacker will send a reset message or with the RST flag on. It's like the attacker, after making sure that the port is open, sends RST and say, "Okay, forget about it. I don't want to establish connection to so terminate the session. That's why we call it stealth scan, because it doesn't let the handshake be completed. But in this scan, if the port was closed, the server responds with RST packet. And if the attacker sends a SYN packet and doesn't receive any response, it means the port is filtered by firewall. SYNScan is the default and most popular scan option for good reason. It can be performed quickly, scanning thousands for ports per second on a fast network not hampered by intrusive firewalls. SYNScan is relatively uh, it's relatively unobtrusive and stealthy, since it never completes TCP connections. Note that there are some common stealth scan that includes the following: null scan, finscan, and xmas scan. Let's talk about the null scan. In a null scan, attacker sends a packet with no flags on. All flags are zero. When the victim receives it, they will get confused because it's a violation of TCP rules, because one of the flags has to be on, and as a result, you send something wrong. And if the server get confused, it will send to the attacker no response. If there is no response, it means the port is open. And if the confused server responds to attacker with RST flags, it means the port is closed. Finiscan. The attacker will send a packet with the fin flag on. Other flags are zero, but the fin flag is on. Again, this is a violation of TCP rules because there is no connection and you will send the TCP packet to finish. So again, the server will get confused and say, hey, what are you doing? There is no connection, and you say finish. What does it mean? So if the port was open, the server would send no response, and no response means the port is open. But if the port is closed, the server will send to attacker a packet with RST flag on. XMAS method. In this particular scan, attacker actually creates the packet, and in this packet, attacker just on three particular flags: push, urgent, and finish. So the attacker sends a packet with these flags on. Again, it's an invalid packet because imagine that the attacker says to the sender, hey, process this packet quickly and at the same time finish this communication. So the server would say it's kind of a nonsense packet. So if the port was open, the server would actually send no response. As a result, if no response, it means the port is open. But if the server sends again a packet with RST, it means the port is closed. Next method is ACK scan. We usually use ACK scan to detect the fire. In the ACK scan, the attacker will send a packet with the ACK flag on and with a random sequence on. It's again TCP rule violation because you don't send any SYN packet to say I want to establish a connection, but send an AND packet, ACK packet. So when the server receive that packet, say, hey, what kind of acknowledgement do you send me? I didn't send you any SYN ACK packet. What this acknowledgement is for? So again, it will get confused. If the port is filtered, the target will not send any response or drop the packet. And if the port is unfiltered, the target will send back a TCP RST packet, indicating an invalid action. Method of UDP scan. All the methods we discussed so far use TCP handshaking, and they were used to check TCP ports. But what if we want to check whether a UDP port is open in target or not? For this, we should send a UDP packet to the server and to a specific UDP port. If it responds with a UDP packet, the port is open. If no response is received, the port is identified as an open filtered port. And if an ICMP response error comes back, it means the port is closed. As I said before in this lesson, ICMP is an error reporting system. So if there is an error, it comes into picture. Now it's time to talk about 10 important IP scanners and port scanners and get to know about them. I'm going to talk about them and their features in this lesson. At first, Angry IP Scanner. Angry IP Scanner is a straightforward and lightweight cross-platform networks utility used for IP address and port scan that you can download and install in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux machine. Angry IP Scanner starts by scanning a range of IP addresses. You can specify a custom range or use the default. It sends out ICMP requests to each IP addresses to determine if the host is live. As I said before, if an IP address responds, it's considered a live host. Once live hosts are identified, Angry IP Scanner proceeds to scan open ports on those hosts. It sends TCP or UDP packets to various port numbers to check if they are open or closed. Angry IP Scanner uses a variety of methods for scanning open ports, including TCP Connect, TCP SYN, UDP, and others. Angry IP Scanner allows users to choose the method of scanning they prefer based on their specific needs and network environments. By default, it scans common ports like 80 for HTTP and 443 for HTTPS, but you can customize the port range. Angry IP Scanner displays the results in a simple list format. For each leaf host, it shows the IP address, host name, open ports, and some other optional things like MAC address that you should select them to see them. Next one is Advanced IP Scanner. Advanced IP Scanner is a free network scanning available for Windows operating systems. It's used to quickly and easily scan network devices, detect their IP addresses, MAC addresses, and open ports. Like Angry IP Scanner, it's scanning a range of IP addresses within your network. It sends ICMP echo request packets to each IP addresses to determine if the host is live. If an IP address responds with an ICMP echo reply, it's considered a live host. And after that live hosts are identified, Advanced IP Scanner proceeds to scan for open ports on those hosts. It retrieves IP addresses, MAC addresses, and other relevant data for each device. Additionally, it identifies the program running on open ports. Next one is Nmap. Nmap is a powerful and reliable port scanner that's used by almost every security professional. You can install Nmap on Windows, Linux, and macOS, but note that Nmap comes pre-installed on Kali Linux. Nmap is also at first check if the host is alive or not by sending a ping request and check its response. In addition, Nmap could be used to determine which ports are open, what services those hosts are offering, and say their application name and version, what operating system and OS version they are running, what types of firewall or filtering system is in use, and other valuable information. Nmap can perform a variety of scanning techniques such as TCP Connect scanning, SYN scanning, UDP scanning, and more to gather detailed information about the target network device. ZenMap. Nmap was command line version, but ZenMap is a graphical version of Nmap. We also known it as a GUI version of Nmap. FPIN. Basically, one of the tools which comes with Kali Linux, you can actually send ping requests to multiple IP addresses. And it's just for IP scanning. OpenVAS. OpenVAS or Open Vulnerability Assessment System is an open source network security scanner and vulnerability management platform used to detect and assess security vulnerabilities in networks and web applications. OpenVAS could be installed on Kali Linux or various Linux distributions. It will initially conduct a port scan of an IP address to find open services. Once listening services are discovered, they are tested for known vulnerabilities and misconfigurations using a large database. The results are compiled into a report including detailed information regarding each vulnerability and notable issues discovered. OpenVAS consists of various components including a scanner, a manager, and a collection of network vulnerabilities tests. Nessus. Although Nessus is primarily known as a vulnerability scanner, it can also perform basic network discovery. It's widely used in security assessments. Nessus could be installed on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. Nessus begins by scanning a range of IP addresses within a network. Once slave hosts are identified, Nessus scans for open ports on those hosts. Nessus relies on a comprehensive database of built-in tests. The scanner checks for known vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, and weaknesses in services and applications. Daily updates ensure that the vulnerability database remains current. Next one is Netcat. Although not exclusive scanner, Netcat is one of the most powerful networking tools, security tools, and network monitoring tools. It can be used for various networking tasks, including port scanning, port listening, file transfer, and as a general networking tool. Netcat is a command line tool available for multiple operating systems, including Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. It can establish both TCP and UDP connection. Next one is MassScan. MassScan is a powerful TCP port scanner that transmits SIM packets and produce results similar to Nmap, the most famous port scanner. MassScan is designed for large-scale survey of the internet or internal networks. Next one is SuperScan, a window-based scanner that can scan for open ports, services, and vulnerabilities. It's user-friendly and suitable for use by system administrators to evaluate a computer's security and test for possible unauthorized open ports on their networks. In conclusion, port scanners are a critical tool in network security for several reasons. They help identify open ports and the services running on them, which can reveal potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited by attackers. By scanning the ports, organizations can assess their network security posture, ensuring that only approved services are running and accessible. Port scanning can prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information by detecting and allowing the culture of open ports. Okay, this was my presentation and thank you for your time.
Okay, Amir, thank you for your presentation. Okay, Amir, thanks for your lessons presentation. In the next lesson, you should present your practical lessons uh, about how to use IP scanner and port scanner software. Thanks for watching the video. To support us, please don't forget to subscribe and like, and please do not hesitate to ask questions in the comment section. Bye now.